What's up guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. After 96 years without posting, I know, but here we are. Today's video, we're going to be ranking the universities of Italy that has an English program for you that hasn't yet decided which university to pick. So let's get going. Alright guys, so here we are, and if you click on this video, it's probably because you're thinking about taking the IMAT this year or the next year. And you should know that the hardest part isn't organic chemistry or physics, but deciding where you're going to spend the next 6 years of your life. 2,190 days, yeah, I counted. We're talking about 6.5 meals of rice and chicken breast. But alright, let's go straight to the point. I believe you guys have an idea how this works. If not, you're probably going to have a feeling it as we go. Down here, we're going to have all these beautiful logos of each one of the 17 universities, some of them looking like tarot cards, and then we're going to have our tiles here, which I kindly address each one of them based on some of the characteristics. A big disclaimer here that I should say and must say is that this is based on my opinion, based on my perspective, and some of the researches I have made myself when choosing my own university. For the ones who don't know, I study in University of Bologna, so guess where this is going to be placed. And also based on some extra information that have been going around the internet recently. There's no official information about seats yet or any other thing, but there is one big news here. For the ones who don't know, it's going to be a big surprise that now among all the other options of universities, you can choose an extra one that is the University of Florence. So a brand new university that's now offering medicine in English. We're going to talk about that, but just don't get angry at me by the tile I'm going to place it. Alright guys, so let's start playing. And the first university we're going to analyze here is going to be the University of Bicocca. So theoretically, university located in Milano, theoretically, and I'll tell you why in a second. But first of all, it's a great university. I have only heard great things about it as one of the best, if not the best, hospital facility in the whole Italy. So we're talking about modern equipment and stuff like that. They're really known for graduating the doctors of the future. That's something that they say a lot. They have a very fair tuition fee that is around 600 euros, quite low if you compare to other universities. But on the other hand, as I mentioned, it's theoretically in Milano because big part, maybe 80% of the classes, they are held in a neighbor city called Bergamo, which is not a problem. Bergamo seems to be a really good place. But those 20% of classes that you have to go back to Milano just wouldn't do for me. You also have to consider that it's a university located in the north, so it's going to be a little bit more expensive for food and stuff like that. But Bergamo is a little bit more cheaper when it comes up to renting, so that kind of balance itself. So for that reason, I'm gonna place it here, high tier. Sorry, buddy. And the next university we have here to analyze is the University of Catania. What can we say about Catania? They have an elephant in their logo. What else do you want? Catania, in my perspective, is kind of the opposite of Bicocca. Not in a bad way, but we're talking about a university that is located in the south. So summer, beach, all these good things. You probably well know the difference between the north and the south, especially when it comes up to rent and groceries and stuff. So you're probably gonna be paying a lot less in the south. Other than that, people are a lot nicer, they're warmer, they're happy to hear whatever you have to say, and they're really happy whenever you try to speak in Italian, so that can be really encouraging. But I gotta say, the course of medicine in English in Catania is considered kind of recent and new when you compare to the other universities. Not that it's a bad thing, but usually this comes with some the organization, okay, especially bureaucratically, or even thinking about how comfortable the teachers are in speaking in English. Also, Italian is almost mandatory, obviously not during the classes, okay, those first years of classes, but when you step out of the university, you can't forget that you're in Italy, and people, they kind of struggle a little bit with the English. So maybe if you are not that secure with Italian yet, you would like to choose another university that is in the metropole or have more international students. So for that reason, for those reasons, okay, and for the fact that it's considered kind of chaotic as for a lot of the university located in the south, I'm gonna place it, okay, I don't think it's fair enough to put it here, a mid-tier, okay, because it's a good university, but it can be a little bit tricky when it comes up to their organization. Alright guys, so for this next one here, I'm going straight to the point because I don't really have much to say about it. We're talking about a university that is located in an island, the University of Cagliari. So this university has started offering the course of medicine in English since 2024. So for those reasons, I'm gonna have to place it right here. It's kind of having like a long relationship with the mainland of Italy, so not really my thing. Alright guys, so moving on here, we're going to talk about the University of Luigi Vanvitelli. I don't know you guys, but I immediately think about Mario. Now, something you have to remember is that we're talking about a university that is located in the south of Italy. It's a university that is in Naples, okay? But it has some advantage over the main University of Naples. It's kind of in the outside. So most of that chaotic energy and the organization you will hear a lot about in Naples, you kind of are protected a little bit, you know, in this outside environment, more connected to the nature and stuff like that. Also, the price for accommodation will be a lot lower compared to central Naples, so that's a big A. So cheap food, cheap accommodation, all these things are really good. Classes are kind of small if you consider, like around 20 to 40 students, which is good in my opinion. It allows you to connect more with your colleagues and also with the teachers. You know, big classes, it's just a big mess in my perspective. But there are obviously some downsides as well. When it comes up to the university itself, the bureaucracy can be a little bit deorganized from what I heard. Also, people usually tend to speak more Italian over English. Maybe it's a South thing. When it comes up to the exams, the majority, maybe 95% of the exams, they are oral. I know you already expect that, but there are other universities that they kind of balance out with some written exams. It's not the case of Luigi Vanvitelli. Also, some facilities lacking, like a canteen and stuff like that. But I still think it's a solid option, so for that reason, I think it fits perfectly right here. Alright guys, so our next university here we're going to talk about is the University of Messina, and I honestly don't know what to do with it, because I heard a lot of good things about the University of Messina, but I also heard a lot of bad things about it, especially when it comes up to the bureaucracy. It's a university located at on the south, and one thing I do know is that they have a flat tuition fee that is around 750 euros, so it's very fair compared to the other universities. But problems with the bureaucracy related to Messina, I keep hearing like a broken record, you know, like even to get your budget from the university, this is something that will take like 4 months. Beside that, I heard that they have a very strict schedule, you know, with classes spread out the morning and the afternoon. So if you're thinking about getting a part-time job, maybe that is not a good idea for you. Also, another city that you might struggle if your only language is English. Buses are usually delayed, which is not a big surprise. I think this is a common problem here in Italy. And something that I think it's interesting to mention actually is that they're really strict with the attendance list. Okay, I know that naturally they would be, but and practically some universities they're not really strict. You know, like in Bologna, for example, the attendance is the minimum required is 60%, which for me it's like extremely low if you think about it. 5 days of the week, I'm allowed to just skip 2 days and I'm still good, you know. And there's different ways of like controlling this attendance. Like in Bologna, it's just a big QR code that they project in a screen and you use your phone for that. But from what I heard, Messina, they are really like on top of that. You know, you have to have your attendance on to date. Otherwise, you can't do exams. You can't move on your career. So I don't know. But in general lines, Messina would be one of those universities I would put at the very bottom of my list, you know, because I'm not going to waste any opportunity to get into medical school. But also, if I can consider other options, I will go for it. I'm going to put it here, enter at your own risk, just beside Cagliari. I think that's fair. So right after that, we're going to have the University of Padova, which is a great university if you're thinking about sponsorship. So Padova has one of the highest sponsorship available for international students. That is around 8,000 euros. Of course, there are some bureaucracy behind that. We're not going to explore this in this video, but if you're thinking about getting a sponsorship, maybe Padova would be one of the best options. Other than that, something that is a big good thing for me that I did not know is that most of their exams, they are written or they are like with multiple choices. You know, you have just a few oral exams, but that is not the case. And beside that, instead of having this massive exam at the very end of the semester, it is very common throughout the professors that they will do some small tasks along the whole semester that will kind of sum up into a final grade. So a little bit more similar with what we are used to in high school or other places. I would tell you, for example, that Padova is going through a house crisis, much like a lot of other cities and countries here in Europe, but that wouldn't be actually a valid information for you since the University of Padova is kind of going through some changes since last year. So the main center, most of the classes are being held now not on the city of Padova, but in Venice. And I honestly don't know what is the reality out there. I think it also it's probably kind of complicated to find accommodation in Venice. There are universities in the north either way, so you're probably going to have to pay a little bit more when comparing to university in the south. And there are those kind of issues, like for example, like tough winter, or like, oh, this is terrible, bugs during summer, you know, just entering your house, those smelly bugs, you know. Oh my god, I struggle with that so much. But beside these changes, the program will maintain the same. So written exams, also it's one of the universities where you have more contact with the patients, you know, like since the beginning, which is something kind of rare when you think about the universities in Italy. So the theoretical aspect of it is really strong here in Italy, but the practical is usually something that is very criticized. But Padova seems to kind of balance out this. So For that reason, I don't know, I'm kind of doing a propaganda here. I'm gonna have to put it at the God tier here. Moving on, we have Tor Vergata. I honestly don't have much to say about this, beside the fact that sometimes the cutoff point for this university just go crazy for no reasons. Tor Vergata seems to me like that chill, cool cousin from Sapienza. So you have the benefit of being close to, you know, Rome, but also you have like this clean air, this fresh environment that you will not find in Sapienza, for example, that is literally in the heart of Rome. From what I heard, there are a lot of early hands-on, so you're gonna have some practical activities since the beginning, and also you're gonna have some oral exams, like straight oral exams. And what I mean by that is that some universities, sometimes they usually do like a written test that is mandatory, and you can only do the oral exam if you succeed in the first one. So the first one has no value. It's just like you know, something that you have to go through in order to do the real exam. Fortunately, Tor Vergata don't work that way, so all the oral exams you go straight through it. So I don't know what you can do with this information. Anyway, some people say that it's kind of isolated from the world. I don't know, Cagliari at this point is just saying hello, but I think it's a solid option, so that's where I'm gonna put it right here. Next one, we have the University of Turin. From what I heard, great university, has a great equipment, up to date, and it's one of the university at the north, so there are some opportunities when it comes up to sponsorship as well, so I'm just gonna put it here as a higher tier. Following that, we have the University of Milan. Now, actually at the city of Milan, it's a great university, not only for medicine, but for a bunch of other courses, so you can imagine how crowded the city is with students, the environment, everything. Like, I think it's a place that actually breathes knowledge, so I have to put it at the God tier. One of the down things I heard is that sometimes, especially in the medicine program, they can have some schedules, like when it comes up to the lessons and also to the hospital routines. But I do have to say that is a very expensive city, so if you are on a budget, maybe this is not a great opportunity for you, because it is expensive, not only to live there, to rent stuff, but also to buy groceries. You know, it's crazy, the price of things can variate so much depending on what part of Italy that you are. Also, when it comes up to the medical program, one of the complaints is that the lessons and the hospital rotations, usually they are spread out, different hospitals in the city, so you can find yourself having to cross the city depending on the activity you are assigned for. So this is something to consider. But the transportation is very efficient, so you can pay, for example, 22 euros for a whole year of bus tickets. This is insane. Here in Bologna, for example, you have to pay 160 euros. And one cool thing about the University of Milan is that they kind of reward you if you are on track of your duties. You know, like there are the classes you have to take on the first semester, second semester, third semester, and if you clear all of them at the right pace, they will give you some solid discounts on how much you have to pay as a tuition, you know, regardless how much you already pay, so everybody like gain. So that's really cool. I think this is something that you should maybe keep in mind. Moving on to the next university of our list here, we're gonna have the University of Bologna. Well, what can I say? It's one of the oldest universities in the whole Europe. We are talking about 1088. That doesn't even sound right when I say it, but it is a very old university with a lot of reputation, which is a great thing if you're thinking about working abroad. It's a solid curriculum. This year, Times Higher Education has ranked the University of Bologna as the #1 when it comes up to the quality of the medical program here in Italy, and number 95 in the whole world. In general lines, it has a really good student environment. The university is very spread out the city, so you have different sections depending on the course you're taking. So the classes, the medical classes, they are taken in the hospital of St. Ursula. So since the beginning, you're gonna have this interaction with a hospital environment. I think that is really good and healthy. I mean, maybe not in a practical way. I think the only downside I can mention right now from the top of my head is that there is no beach around. The nearest one is in Rimini or Ravenna, but you can be in both of them in less than an hour and a half. So I think I have to say no more. I'll just put it at the God tier here. Moving to our next university of our list here, we're gonna have University of Federico II in Naples. And you guys might know that the cutoff point for this university is usually quite high when you compare it to the other universities. And there's a reason for that. The University of Naples, Federico II, it's one of the best in the region. And there's a lot of scientific projects going on, papers being written. And it is a small classroom with 20 students more or less. And beside that, the classes are usually held during the afternoon. So around 1 to 5 1 to 6. So most of the mornings you have for yourself. So that is a great thing if you're looking for a part-time job. It is a very flexible schedule. So this is something you're not going to find anywhere else. Also, they have a fixed flat tuition fee around 500 euros, which is kind of low. So I think like we're just combining things together, you know. You might struggle a little bit with English as well for not speaking Italian, but I think a lot less than the other universities that I mentioned. I'm just not going to put at Gottheimer because of the reasons I mentioned, but I still think it is like a very high quality option, so I'll put it right here. All right, so we finally got to Sapienza. Let's judge this university here. There's a lot of conflict opinions about Sapienza. It is a university that is high prestigious, okay, has a really good reputation. It is in the core of Rome, and right beside you have the hospital, so it's very convenient. But don't forget that you are in one of the most crowded city in the whole world, so that could be a little overwhelming. But beside that, there's a lot of other good things, like for example, some fixed tuition fees, like around 500 to 1,000 euros. Also, you have on-hand experiences a lot earlier than other universities, so that's really good. Classes are usually held in the morning, so around 9 to 1, 9 to 2, so you kind of have your afternoon free. Sometimes you might have some lab classes, but it won't be that frequent. So for a part-time job, I think it is a great opportunity, especially because you're going to be in Rome, so you're going to have so many opportunities to find a job that you can kind of fit in your schedule. So that is a great thing. But I also heard that because there's so many students, it can be a little bit complicated to go through some bureaucratic steps, you know, like the waiting time for a response from the office can take a little bit longer than other universities. But I think that is something that it makes sense, you know. But anyway, I think because of all reputation and everything, I'm gonna have to put it at a higher tier here. I'm gonna have to put it right here. We're almost at the end to our next university here, University of Parma. Being honest with you all guys, I don't really know about the day-to-day life in Parma. What are the main struggle? I try to search it up. Some of the things, I only heard good things, that has a really good relationship with the international programs. It is also, I know a little bit about the city itself, and friends that live there, they're really happy. So I think that this is one of the important things, you know, like knowing the city where you're going to be living, not only looking at the university itself. So this is something that kind of make me look at Parma with better eyes, you know. I won't like try to kind of bet too high, but I won't also put it too low. So because of the city and because of how receptive it can be with international students, I'm going to put it as a solid choice. Alright guys, so for this next university here, we're going to talk about the University of Marche, okay? So this university has actually surprised me a lot because I wasn't aware about their program. So actually, whenever you enroll in this course, you have the possibility of coming out with 2 degrees. One as a doctor, okay, medical degree, and also a degree of a biomedical engineer. So that's crazy. So you're going to graduate as an engineer as well. So imagine how jealous your cousin's going to be. But it's not mandatory, okay? The only thing that I thought, okay, I know not everybody likes calculation and stuff like that, so it would be fair if you could choose. But you can and you cannot. You know, the first 2 or 3 years, for example, you have to take some mandatory calculation. But after the 3rd year, if you really want that engineer degree, you're going to have to take some extra classes, around 30 credits, if I'm not mistaken. But if you don't want, you can just skip and go straight through the medical program. The program is really loyal to the medical syllabus, so you won't be missing anything out when you compare it to the programs in other universities. It's actually just adding something to it. So I think that is a great opportunity for the one who like this is something that actually interested me, and for that reason I'm going to put it as a solid choice. Alright, so moving on, our last 3 universities to judge. Jesus, okay, we're doing this. Pavia, University of Pavia. Okay, this one is easy actually. This is like a straight A. Pavia is a really good university. The city itself, it's quite small, but it's really close to Milan. So you can get there in 30 minutes with a train. You're only gonna like spend 4 euros to get there. So that is a great thing. Also, the buses are really reliable, something really rare here in Italy, and they're really cheap. You can have like an annual ticket for less than 20 euros, which is kind of a miracle. I don't know how they do that. Also, other 2 things that are gonna make you pack your suitcase right now. One of it is that you're only gonna have oral exams after the 2nd year. So the 1st and 2nd year, most of the exams, if not all of them, are written or multiple choice. So this is fantastic, and is one of the cheapest cities to live in the north of Italy. Okay, so if you compare all the cities that we have spoken so far, Pavia is the one that has the lowest price when it comes up to rent, when it comes up to regular groceries and stuff like that. So kind of like a whole bundle for a single price. The only bad thing that you should consider, but think about it as an investment. It has a kind of high tuition, that is around 3.5 to 4,000 euros. Okay, but if you think about it, like you have to do the math. Depending on how much you're going to save on and your groceries, rent, it might be worth it. So beside the fee tuition thing, I'm going to put it as God tier, because there are always a possibility for you to drop down that fee through economic declaration and stuff like that. All right, so moving along here, let's talk about the University of Bari. Where are we going to place this one here? So Bari is one of those cities that have access to the beach, so there's a big A here. Also, it has a really low cost of living, which is important. Usually the groups of students, they are small, around 40 to 50 students, which is good as well. From what I heard, their schedule, like classes schedule, they are usually flexible. So it kind of sounded like finding a part-time job would be something possible. But it's a university in the south, you can't forget that. So it will struggle with the same problems of bureaucracy. And I heard a little bit from some people saying that even some teacher, I don't know, it was an old post, but some teachers, for example, they're too organized when they are teaching, or their proficiency in English as well isn't quite the best. It could have changed, I don't know, but for that reason, I'm gonna put it as a mid-tier. All right, we made it. And to wrap up, let's talk about the University of Florence, okay, also known as the University of Firenze. Okay, this is a new university. To be honest, nobody knows what to expect, okay? What we can think about it is the city itself, okay? How is it organized? It is quite a small city. It is a city loaded with tourists, and it is one of the most expensive cities of whole Italy. So I think these 2-3 elements are things that we should consider for sure, okay? Now, how will the program will develop itself that semester? First bundle of students, they always are like explorers, and then they tell us how it was the experience. But in my opinion, I believe that the teachers will be well prepared, because it is a very solid city. It is a very solid university. So I believe that the teachers will be well prepared to teach in English, but you never know, You can't forget that you're in Italy, and here in Italy, the philosophy is to start no matter what, and then we see the outcome and see whatever has to be changed. So there's no big planning on it. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in there at your own risk, okay? Does that mean that it's bad? Does that mean that it's going to be bad? No, not at all. But I think that we still have to wait and see. And beside that,